Welcome to Golden Owls TV. Today we have Cosby Johnson. He is the mayor for the City of Brunswick. Stay tuned. That show is coming up next. Welcome back to Golden Owls TV. I am here with Cosby Johnson. He is the mayor for the City of Brunswick, and we're so thrilled to have you today.
I appreciate you. Thank you as always for having me, Avery, and the work that you all do to get the word out to our citizens around our region. So thank you.
You're welcome. We're thrilled to have you. We did have you on the show a few months ago, and that was just sort of an introduction. I know there's probably been a lot going on since then. So I guess fill us in from then to now, and maybe some new things you're working on as well.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that is of interest, at least to me, is I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the discussions around SPLOST, the special local option sales tax. And, I think the previous commission and the previous mayor had done a great job at kind of doing the firm foundation work that we needed to do to make sure that our list encompassed the entirety of the city of Brunswick, that it touched the most important things that affect our citizens, which is truly some deep and real infrastructure needs that we have as a city. And so we were happy to enter into those negotiations with the county and come out of those negotiations. I know last time we tried to pass a SPLOS, the city's split of that SPLOS was somewhere in the range of the upper 17%, 17 point some odd percent, maybe 18%. We were able to negotiate with the county and really just stating our projects, being clear about the city's needs and the plans to get that done. And we were able to come out of that negotiation with a 22% split for the city, which is significantly more dollars in the bank for us if our citizens deem fit or see fit to pass this SPLOS. We're coming in with significantly more dollars to be able to work on the projects that are of significance and important to our citizens. And just so you guys could have just a little background kind of on what truly the numbers mean. And for us, we want you to stop by City Hall. We have one pagers that are already printed out. I've spoken to all of our neighborhood planning associations. We've done the work to get out in front of civic organizations to be very clear about what the city's ideas are and what we are projected to do and what's important in our list. So for us, on a low level of taking it in, we would hope to bring in about $28.6 million over the 6 years. If the economy, takes off and we hope it continues to trend in a good direction and we can get inflation to kind of calm down and people feel comfortable, making sure they take their family vacations and come spend time in our areas, we could have an additional kind of $8.8 million added to that number. So that's kind of the guardrails or the framework that we have kind of built our list in. And when we built our list, approximately, I think it's about 68.4 or 68.5% of our dollars are going purely to infrastructure. So we're working on roads that what I like to say is of community importance, whether that's Parkwood, which everyone who uses the hospital knows, they're up and down Parkwood, whether that's Altama MLK. And that's a thoroughfare of our city that county and city citizens use, or whether, those streets that are intrinsic to the city, like Albany Street, that haven't been worked on in a long time. And if you're like me and live downtown, drive down Albany Street every day, run down Albany Street, the dips and dives that it has in the roads that really need to be fixed. But also inside of that, making sure we fix drainage and storm drainage as well. So we have a very impactful list, a smart list where we've decided to focus on infrastructure first and other projects around the city that are of importance to our citizens as well. When you talk about redeveloping Howard Coffin Park and Mary Ross Park, and making sure the dollars are put there to have recreation and a proper recreation facility for our citizens of all ages. We want to see adult kickball and adult softball, as well as football and basketball for the kids. So we've done the work to get that information out, and I'm glad that we have this opportunity to talk a little bit about the SPLOST list and what it means to us over here at the city.
Yes, well, that was a great explanation. I think a lot of people, we talk about SPLOST and what we want to do with it, but the fact that there's going to be more money coming in over the 6-year period is huge. That's a big deal for people to know about. So the money is actually going to go to the right place, and you'll have the money to do the projects, which is super important. As you mentioned, infrastructure, the roads, so important for residents and visitors. But also talk a little bit about, you started talking about recreation and possibly a river walk, and making it like more bike friendly, sidewalks, the parks, really talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think, I've spent some time talking to, the guys on our staff, having a conversation with City Manager McDuffie, who you all have on. Amazing asset for our city, but also guys like David Bravo and Garo Alberson, when we have those kind of discussions about continuing really the bikeable and walkable plans of a trail that's already kind of been out there. When we talk about the East Coast Greenway is a trail that connects the furthest northeast points of the East Coast, all the way down to Brunswick, Georgia. And we are doing the work to finish our piece of that, and we're getting very close to it. We just had a community meeting this past week over at Howard Coffin Park, where we brought everyone out, showed everyone the renderings that are put forth by the river walk that's being built, and really open it up for comment. Let us know what you see. Let us know what you don't see. Let us know what makes sense and doesn't make sense. And that's important for us. I know personally, I'm a runner. I try and get out there as many times a week as I can. But also, having the conversations with those who bike, having the conversation with those who may take their children out on the trail, having a conversation with those who use it for fishing and crabbing. Those are all different areas of recreation that we have to have those conversations with them to make sure that what we build is suitable to what they need. And I was happy that we had that open and honest and fun conversation with the community to make sure that we were moving in the right direction. We have put dollars towards that in our budget. And I can just tell you our tier 1 funding for trails and boardwalk is about $2.5 million. And if we are lucky to grow, that tier 2 funding could bring in an additional $1 million for us to continue to build out the trail. One of the things that, we just have to be honest about is, these sound like very large numbers, but the amount of trail and the kind of things that you can build for these dollars, while they are serious to our community, they don't get the whole job done. There's a lot more that needs to be done. And because we need those additional dollars to complete the trail, clean up parks, and have really, I would like world-class facilities for our children and our community, that's going to take us reaching out not only to raise money in our community, but to also bring in federal dollars and grants, and also bring in state dollars and grants. So we are focusing, as we build out our trail system, as we build out our parks, to make sure we are accessing all avenues of funding to make sure our people see the change in the community. And I want to take a quick second and spend a little second talking about Howard Coffin Park. Howard Coffin Park, I think Mary Ross Park, I think a lot of people have heard of that. That gets a lot of attention. It's a waterfront park, and we are inside of phase 2 and really working on what phase 3 is going to look like with the community. However, I think Howard Coffin Park is such a gem that kind of we don't spend a lot of time talking about. We have absolutely beautiful tennis courts that are used by so many people around our community, but also patrons from over on the island. We have a beautiful track that goes along the back half of it. But the truth of the matter is we're going to have to put substantial dollars inside of Mary Ross Park to turn it into what it needs to be. And that is not only the back end where I used to play football. So back in the back end of Howard Coffin Park, those fields that we used to play football on, over time, water and rain and just a natural environment has really eroded those fields in a way that we're going to have to go back and do some serious work to make sure those fields get up to standard, to make sure that when it rains, our kids can still maybe play a football game or two, to make sure when it rains, it's not flooding whole sides of the park and really damaging what is truly a city asset. We're going to have to build up and rebuild those baseball fields to make sure they're of a standard that when our kids re-engage in the rec department for the city, that they have the best of the best. And we're looking forward to that challenge. I know Mayor Pro Tem Harris has been on the tip of the spear on this commissioner role as well. And we just want to make sure as we do the work to bring back recreation, that we give not only our children, but our citizens the absolute dynamic jewel of a park that Howard Coffin Park is, and make sure we do the work to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we always do think of Mary Ross Park and the waterfront and all that, and that is important and a great asset for the city of Brunswick. But Howard Coffin, you're right. It's a walkable situation. Like you said, go play football and all of that. So it does need to be state of the art. And that is something we haven't talked about. It's there. Everybody knows, like, there it is. You see it, right. You see the softball players, but I don't think anybody realized that it would take a lot of work and a lot of money to really build it back up to what it needs to be, or maybe what it used to be. Is there a separate campaign specifically for that park or for recreation, a grant that's specific for that, or is that just part of Lost Splost deal?
Yeah, the base of it, the foundational part of it is a part of Lost and Splost. I think that's what I try and talk to our citizens about and be honest about, is that the dollars we bring in, and we're so thankful for our citizens trusting and believing in our commission to get and solve these tough issues. But the dollars that come in really are just the start. If we want to see the community that we all know Brunswick can be, it's going to take investment, and it's going to take additional investment, like I said, from not only the federal side, but it's going to take investment from the state side, and it's going to take us actively going after grants. It's going to take us actively being at the table with discussions about how we rebuild these things in a smart and environmentally friendly manner. And so there are several different kind of buckets to be touched there. And so the dollars that we talk about in Splost and Lost are really the foundational dollars. And I say that to bring up a point, when people of my era, were growing up and we had city sports. When you had city baseball, when you had city football, city basketball, number one, you had something to do. It was something to keep you away from falling into all of the ills that an idle mind holds, right? And that can go several different directions, right. But it didn't allow the child's mind. It didn't allow our minds to be idle. But it also taught us so much respect for our elders and coaches. It taught us to work together, to love each other, to treat each other well, to stand up for each other. But inside of all of that, what we seen was really smart, forward-thinking community partners partner with the rec program at that time to not only give the capital, the dollar capital that was needed, but to also provide the human capital that was needed. I think back in the day, I played baseball against Commissioner Booker, our county commissioner, Commissioner Booker's son. He was one of my closest friends, Dominique Clinch. And I remember he played for the Coca-Cola Reds. They had the most amazing outfits. But the local Coca-Cola company sponsored that team.
Right.
I played for the VFW Royals. Not as cool of a sponsor, but we loved it. And the VFW Royals was sponsored by that local VFW, but also that's where you got your coaches from. That's where your community showed up. So we're going to have to do a lot of work. It's not only about changing and reimagining the true asset of the park and making sure everyone can enjoy it, but also rebuilding those community bonds that help grow a generation and change a community.
Yes, I'm so glad that you are bringing this up, because it's hard to imagine that it was so good back, when you were growing up and everybody was connected, and that was just typical. That was just almost expected, that the coaches and the sponsors, and that's how you put everything together. And now, what happened? Why did we lose that, and how do we get it back?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the first step, right, is showing people that the elected officials and the people who are in the space to make the things happen are going to be committed, and
Right.
not to our vision, but to their vision. The city commission was committed to bringing back parks and recreation because our people said that's what they said. That's what they wanted.
That's what they wanted.
They understood the importance of it. So what it is I think listening to the brilliant citizens of Brunswick and being able to sit with them, knock on their doors, visit their churches. I've been blessed enough to be a mayor for a little bit now, so a little honeymoon period is wore off. So people start to give you their honest opinions, and that's been such a blessing. It's been a blessing to take that in and talk to people about their vision and what they see for their city. And I think Parks and Rec and this recreation is something that the city has been asking for a long time, and bringing it back. I know no amount of money, no amount of capital can bring back the human capital. And if we get the human capital to come back, then it won't matter kind of when we get to the fields. They'll be played on. It won't matter kind of as we start to change and reimagine what it looks like. We'll have the people there that'll be able to pour into that process as well.
Yes, you mentioned renderings, and y'all met at the park about that, and yeah, that would be great to see a rendering. If people can see it, sometimes they believe it.
Right.
We're taught to believe even though you don't see it, but not everybody can envision what it could be or what it should be, or even what it used to be. I think that would be super helpful to have some older pictures of, I don't know, you and your team and some of the, and then say, hey, we can do that again.
Right.
And let's get behind it. And those visual renderings would be important, I'm sure, as well.
They are of the utmost importance to give everyone a vision. And, I think much like Mary Ross is such a good example, right? It's such a beautiful place. You could have a million ideas.
Yes.
And so it's about doing the work to settle in and be like, okay, guys, what do we need as a community? What's important to us? What do we want to make sure it stays as? What do we want to protect? And I think there's been a lot of work done with Mary Ross by a lot of different groups who we have some great ideas of starting to build out that rendering phase and really show people, hopefully, what their vision looks like, not ours.
Right. We're just there to carry it out. To listen to the people. And I think Parks and Recreation is so great. And, people also coming, to people that already live here, but also people coming to Brunswick. They want to know, do you have this, and this? And do you have a great football rec team for my son and all of that? I mean, these are important things that people do look at when they're coming to consider living in a community. So it can only get better and help that as well.
I agree. And, I think what's important to us, and just to pivot a little bit here to a little more serious topic is, what I believe is that the recreation part is a part that has poured so deeply into the lives of so many people across our community. that it's one of those things that we have to pour into, because it is one of the first things that we can do as a community to deter crime. It's one of the first things that we can do to tell children that, we love you more than the person who wants you to do something that's not you. We love you more than the person who wants you to act outside of yourself. We love you more than the person who wants you to go harm someone else or be someone that you're not. And we have to do the work, the really hard work, to give them a better option.
Right.
To give them the option to say, yeah, like, I don't want you to, I don't want you to join a gang, but I also don't want you to just sit at home and do nothing. That can't be your other option. And so what we have to do as a community, and, God bless our K-12 system. They've done an amazing job, right? Pouring into kids during the school year. School has just started Black. Shout out to all of the teachers and administrators and principals. School is just starting back, and that's a large foundational piece of it. But it's a community piece of it too. And it's time for us to start doing our bit and making sure that we give people a recreation department that garners the attention of adults, young adults, children, and gives them a chance to do something different, but also a chance to understand that your community is going to focus on you, and your community is going to care about you. And so when we talk about that, I know one of the great things that, Mayor Pro Tem Harris always talks about is the programs that used to be run at Howard Coffin. And so it wasn't just, football and basketball, it was piano and dance and swimming and everything else. And so those are the things that I hope with partnerships we can dig into and really start to make sure we give our children the best opportunity and the most beautiful opportunity to be their best selves. And so what I like to do is always say that when we talk about recreation, it's not just, the zero-sum game of playing baseball and basketball and football and all these other things. It's truly about pouring into our community a way that dampens and lessens crime, and that gives children a much better option to be the greatest version of who they are.
Absolutely. It's about the human part of it, as you said. I mean, that's really where it begins. It's great for it to look good, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We love that, a great facility that looks amazing to attract people, but it's really about the children and the purpose behind it.
Right.
For these.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's great. And it's frustrating to hear, as everything has changed, but it's frustrating to hear that it was so good, and and just you have to kind of build back what was already there. But thank goodness you do have that knowledge, and that people do remember it and understand that it can be great again and even better than it was before. So
exactly.
Yeah, excellent to hear. Yes, well, I love all these projects. You're really bringing a different perspective to Splost and Lost and everything else, really helping us understand the true meaning behind what you're doing and what the people want. As you said, you're really just trying to get to the root of the community. So thank you for that perspective.
Always.
Is there anything else you want to talk about, or projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I want to touch on, I think, 3 quick things, and I'll be fast.
Sure.
I think number one, I alluded to it when we were talking about recreation, but I am always doing my best to understand what we can do as elected officials, but also as a city, to do all we can to keep our citizens safe. Inside of my first 2 months in office, it was important that we made sure that we paid our officers at a competitive rate. They were not being paid at a competitive rate. We believed that the rate needed to be drastically changed. But inside of that changing of their pay rate, it was also important to us to come up with a comprehensive plan to attract more officers. And so we did, and I remember talking about this, I think in our first time, but just to remind everyone in our safety act, we raised police pay almost $4. We raised fire's pay. We instituted a $150 per month stipend for officers and fire persons who decided to live inside of the city limits, which allowed us to really build out on community policing and those who serve us being close to us, understanding the community, right? And so inside of those amazing things that we did, there we have seen Chief Jones and the police department start to grow. We've been lucky enough to have, I think, 3 to 4 new officers go complete their training. And so they're at the time where they're, going through their ride-alongs, and it's good to see them. As I'm running up and down the street, I see them with Officer View or other ones getting their ride-along hours in. So that's a blessing to see. But we're also now competing for certified officers who maybe in another community, maybe thinking about retirement and want to move to another community or something to that nature. And we have at least 4 or 5 of those kind of in our bailiwick and able to reach out to them and tap into them too. So I want to say to my commission and to the citizens is that's been a blessing as we continue to grow our force every day. And we're hoping by the end of this year, we could have the largest kind of force numbers that we've seen in a couple years. And that's been, I believe, a direct correlation with the decisions that we made early in this administration to say we're going to devote dollars to our safety officials to make sure they're paid competitively, to make sure that we are not just saying thank you at the appreciation dinners, but making sure that we're showing them what they're worth. And we've done the work to do that, but also do it in a way that I think drives smart community-driven policing. Inside of that, though, we understand that we have some more issues that need to be dealt with. And having a further conversation about how our children are moving into gang-like atmospheres or into gangs is a discussion that we have to tackle. How our children are getting access to weapons. We have to dig into that and understand what that means. And we have to do all that we can. And I know Chief Jones has done a great job at this already. We have to start to do all that we can to focus on our hot spots where we see criminality. And I know Chief Jones has started putting together a plan and pushing to make sure he focuses on those hot spots. I say all of this to say that crime is so often a moving target. The crime of the 80s is not the crime of the 90s. The 90s is not the crime of the 2010s. And I think this generation will have to deal with our version of criminality. But I think what we can do with it is make sure that we are supporting our public safety servants, which I think we've shown them we have. The next thing that we can do is, as a community, make sure that we give children and those who funnel into those situations a better option. And I pray that that's what the recreation and the rebuilding of that recreation department is going to do. But then there's also just the kind of police work that we have to do to root out kind of the bad actors in our community. And so I hope to work very soon with not only my chief, but also with the county and also with the Attorney General's office, who I've been in contact with over the past month, and having some conversation about what does this mean on a statewide level? What does this mean about statewide resources being put into communities that are dealing with issues of gang proliferation? Because what we understand is that gangs are not a Brunswick issue. Gangs are a nationwide issue. Violent crime is not a singular regional issue to the Southeast, that violent crime is on the rise throughout the nation. So we have to be bringing in our state and federal officials to be asking, how do the plans that we will build on a local level lay into kind of what those plans are, where those resources are being pointed, and what their plans are really as a focus to make sure they undergird the mission and the safety of our citizens here. So I just wanted to take a step and just really be honest about the work that we're doing, and that work is not loud and not public for a reason. And it's because that's the hard work that we have to do with our safety officials to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to root out the bad actors in our community and make it safe for all of our citizens. So that's one point I wanted to hit. And I don't know if you had a question on that, but
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like you have a master plan where that's concerned. All the things you're working on sort of feed into that same plan of safety for the community and the children, and between recreation and the park and the programs. The police, what you just talked about, the police and all that, is part of that master plan. So that's good that everything's working together to create the best possible, safest possible community.
That's it. And I like to say this, and sometimes, safety is about feeling safe. I think people can put numbers in front of you, and the numbers that our, Brunswick Police Department have shown have been amazing. Year over year, end over end, we've seen decreases in crime. We've seen a decrease in crime from last year to this year. And so the work of our officers, the work of the Brunswick Police Department, but also the work of the community, right? The work of churches, the work of pastors, the work of coaches, the work of the travel football teams who are out there, and the work of so many individuals in our community is really, they are the ones who underpin that dropping in crime. However, when you see certain things happen, it can instill a feeling that says, where is this coming from? Where is this element coming from? Maybe I didn't used to feel this. I didn't used to see this or hear about this. And so outside of those crime statistics and those crime rates that we have to really, as a community, pat ourselves on the back for. We have a crime rate that is lower than communities of comparable size. So we are doing amazing. At the same time, we have to steadily be vigilant to make sure, again, that we root out those bad actors in our community.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And I love where you said it started really when you increased the pay for the police officers and others, to make sure they knew they're a priority and it's important, and you're actually acting on that. So that's great.
For sure. Yes. And so last couple things is, one, proud of the investment the city made in coastal healthcare. We now have a pharmacy in downtown Brunswick. We now have a place for senior citizens, mothers, people living in the heart of the city to get their medicine that's close and it's accessible, walkable. So I just want to say a big shout out to our commission, who really, again, at the beginning of this administration said, listen, if we're going to get dollars from our citizens, I know people like to say it's federal government dollars, but if we're going to get dollars from our citizens as taxpayers, and that those dollars are going to come into our community because of a health crisis, that sure, there are some projects that we can use this money for. There's ways that we can pour into businesses that was hurt, and we've done that. There are ways that we can pour into starting new businesses or helping businesses grow that were impacted by COVID. We've done that. But the most important thing that we should do is pour into the health of our citizens and make sure they have reliable, accessible, and affordable health care that's attainable to them. For for a single father in McIntyre Court, right? The hospital's further away from him, then he can take him and his children to coastal healthcare and get served. So having that walkability and that closeness in the community matters. And the pharmacy being downtown, I've just heard people rant and rave about that coming back. So shout out to Dr. Chandler, who really brought this forward, and shout out to the commission for really closing in and making sure that happened. And the next thing, and then I'll be done, we had a growth, or we've had a growth over the time since the beginning of my administration in state and federal investment. And that state investment has shown itself, not only the work that you're going to see being done down on Gloucester Street. So watch out for that. We're going to do some announcements on it. You're going to see some signs coming as that gets reworked to really help with that traffic hold up there, but also to clean up that traffic pattern. Those are being done by state dollars that really and not this administration, previous administrations worked with the state to bring these dollars in. We're just seeing that work come to fruition. So we're blessed for their foresight, and we get to be blessed by it and make sure we get it done. But also private investment with CSX. I don't know if anyone's seen, them cleaning up kind of their railways, making sure they put new tire tracks down, cleaning up their areas. So we're blessed to have that partnership with CSX and be able to get them to come down and make sure they straighten that out. But also, we had over $14 million allocated in the federal budget. Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff pushed forward a bill that poured $14 million into Brunswick's port. We're going to see new port action over there. We're going to see some new roll-on, roll-off bays, but we're also going to see some new areas be grown for bulk break as they come in through the shipping channels. So we have been blessed, honestly, and what we have to do is to make sure that from the investment on a statewide level, the federal level, but also the local investment of our citizens, we have to make sure that we're good stewards of it and make sure that we bring forth kind of their vision of the city. So we're happy to be here and happy to be working, and I hope that's not too much.
No, this was awesome. I think we need to have a show like once a week because there's so much going on, and it's all good, and it's hard to fit it all in. No, this is great information, and yes, we just appreciate your perspective. It's showing us a different side of a little bit more behind the scenes of what's going on, and like you said, previous administration worked hard to bring what's happening now. And then you're doing stuff for the future, but at the same time, working right now to make some changes between the police and the parks and recreation. It's all, y'all are very busy in Brunswick, and I love hearing about future projects, but also, like you said, the pharmacy and things that are happening right now that are really making a difference. So I mean, that's awesome. We're thrilled to hear all about it, and I know everybody loves to keep up with the updates. So thank you.
I appreciate you. And as always, we try and take any effort and time that we can to make sure that we're getting out in front of people, telling them what's going on. And, and trust me, like I said, the honeymoons wore off. So I'm okay if people tell me they disagree with me or let me know what I could be doing better. I always want to have an ear to that wisdom as well. So we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. We're thrilled to have you, and we look forward to the next show, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Okay. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. Join us again next time for more Golden Isles TV.